What's up, and welcome back to Interpreting the Stars, where today I am joined once again by the legendary Mike from Did You See That, here to discuss yet another Jet Li film from the early 2000s, and this time we're talking about Kiss of the Dragon. Kiss of the Dragon is ultimately about a Chinese cop that is sent over to France to aid in the detainment of a criminal. But when that criminal is murdered by the French police and he's used as their scapegoat, Jet Li's character is forced to go into hiding. But with the help of a local prostitute, played by Bridget Fonda, he may be able to clear his name and put those responsible behind bars where they belong. First and foremost, gotta give a huge thanks to Mike for joining me again in what I suppose is gonna be a Jet Li marathon of sorts, most of which probably take place in the decade of 2000 to 2010, since that was the height of Jet Li's popularity, at least in the United States. And Mike, if you're willing to go on this adventure through the world of martial arts with me, your next tasked film to review with me will be Romeo Must Die. But until then, we'll be hearing your thoughts on Kiss of the Dragon in just a hot second! But before we get there, I suppose I should say a word or two about it. So essentially, what we have here is the movie The Fugitive, if Tommy Lee Jones' character was the villain and Harrison Ford knew Kung Fu. It's an incredibly basic, classic story about one man that is framed for the crime of another, which is fine if it's done well. Kiss of the Dragon is a fun Jet Li film, even if it's not the most original story in the world. You'll primarily remember the film for, I want to say, the third act, especially when Jet Li heads up against an entire class of martial arts students. So his proficiency as a fighter is once again on display here, and he kills it. I've always been a fan of the style in which Jet Li fights. I mean, heck, I even played his rare, underrated, and forgotten video game, and I'm not really a gamer. But Kiss of the Dragon is a film that is a very easy watch. Jet Li's character particularly is of interest because of the title of the film, Kiss of the Dragon. Now that is a move based off of a skill set that his character has, which is almost like a superpower of sorts. You know, he has all of these needles that he can pinpoint on anybody's body, hit a pressure point or nerve, and that does something unique. It can be as gentle as putting somebody to sleep, paralyzing them, or as brutal as downright killing them. Those needles are pretty amazing. Past that, I did want to mention the title of the film immediately screams classic martial arts in the days of maybe Bruce Lee, probably because of Enter the Dragon, which is arguably Bruce Lee's most famous film. And they definitely made nods to Bruce Lee's fighting stance in this film, where Lee would often motion to the other guy to come at me, bro, essentially. And in Kiss of the Dragon, they would go back and forth saying, no, you come at me. No, you. Because whoever stood their ground usually had the upper hand, and the other person knew that. So that was great. And the choreography, as usual, was on point, and it's the reason why you watch it. I just wish that there was a little bit more of that, but we'll get into that in just a hot second. Let's hear what Mike had to say about this movie.
Kiss of the Dragon came out in 2001 and is directed by Chris Noun, if I pronounced that correctly. This movie stars Jet Li and Bridget Fonda. So what are my thoughts of the 2001 Kiss of the Dragon? Well, let's find out. My man and everyone over at Interpreting the Stars, what is going on? Thank you so much for having me back onto another collaboration, my man, and yet again onto another Jet Li movie, which is awesome because I've never experienced his movies before checking out the one that we've previously talked about. So this is a brand new entry into the Jet Li kind of saga that we're maybe doing right now. I really don't know. Dave always picks out a different entry for me. So what are my honest thoughts about this movie? Because I'm sure by now you've deep dived into the plot and everything, so I'm not really going to touch on that, but I will say that I actually admire a simple plot like this where someone is framed for a murder and they've got to kind of prove their innocence. Now, don't get me wrong, this movie definitely doesn't serve that plot 100%. It definitely could have been improved massively, but I liked that it was kind of like a focal point for this movie. Now, Jet Li is awesome. I actually think that he provides a better performance in this movie than the one. Now, obviously, it's quite difficult to comment on as well because the one is kind of based on kind of like a sci-fi-ish adventure, whereas this is kind of more set as like an action thriller-esque movie. So definitely two complete tonal vibes to them, but Jet Li is still doing the kind of martial arts like he is renowned for. But one thing I actually respect about this movie that I actually read up upon after watching this, most of the scenes are actually done with real life stunt work as well. They're not like CG or wire work either, because Jet Li was actually against that and said, look, I don't want to do wire work. I wanted this purely to simply be maybe showcasing his talents. And you can definitely see that radiates off the screen in each and every scene that he is showcased doing martial arts. Truly, it is phenomenal. Every time Jet Li is on the screen, he really resonates and soaks up every moment. He is definitely what holds this movie together. Now, Bridget Fonda herself, although her dialogue definitely does speak volumes in terms of some of it actually does make genuine sense. For example, when she needs Jet Li's help to get her daughter back, she actually says, oh, so you're actually just going to focus on yourself and kind of just forget me and my daughter, which I thought, well, at least she actually called him out on some possible bullshit that he was going to serve. I actually really respected that. Some of the dialogue she's given is pretty good. Now, don't get me wrong, I know in some scenes she's definitely kind of over the top in the element that she's probably served and she's supposed to do, and then some scenes she's actually like kind of more toned down, kind of more of a controlled-esque vibe in her acting, but I felt like sometimes those shifts were a little bit too much and I didn't really buy into her performance 100%, and at the end of it, I didn't really care for her. I kind of cared more for her daughter than her, which is obviously not the whole point because she is pretty much a main lead in this alongside Jet Li. But yeah, I didn't really care. Now also the bad guy whose name I generally can't remember, I thought he was okay. Don't get me wrong, he was kind of like a generic villain, but at least they try to give him some kind of menace or some kind of essence to his character, because don't get me wrong, he certainly does some brutal killing, but I'm going to say the way that he holds a gun it was just comical relief for me. It was just absolute stupidity. It literally felt as like flimsy like this. He was holding the gun going, pew, pew. I don't know. It was just stupid. I didn't really buy into it, to be honest with you. But I do appreciate this scene. That was actually CG, to be honest. But the scene where Jet Li's in kind of like this kind of laundry chute. Yeah, that's what I'm going to say. That was awesome. Definitely the action set pieces in this movie definitely serve the purpose and also make for this really good looking movie in terms of the cinematography, and there's definitely some wide shots of the action scenes, and that's probably the biggest praise I can give this movie alongside Jet Li's performance. Am I going to say that this is a highly rewatchable movie? No, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't mind maybe revisiting it in a few years time, but for now it's definitely a preferred movie over the one for me. So Dave, I've actually taken up a very quick hot second, but I'm going to hand it back over to you and find out your remaining thoughts on Kiss of the Dragon.
Thank you once again to Mike for joining me today. I always appreciate it. And guys, make sure that you head over to my description box down below for y'all to check out Mike's channel. You know, support his channel and subscribe, because this dude is killing it with interviews with filmmakers of all sorts on top of the reviews and special videos that he's already doing constantly. So check him out. So yeah, Mike, I think you and I mostly agree on this movie. You know, it is fun. It's probably better than the one, like you said. Though I would say the one is more unique or original in its concept. And it's often a movie that I think of when I think about Jet Li. Kiss of the Dragon is definitely more down to earth, though, and less cheesy, which helps you focus a little bit more on Jet Li's maybe acting prowess. My main issue comes down to maybe the fact that a good chunk of it, at least the second act, doesn't really have fight scenes, which is the reason that you're watching the movie in the first place. It had a lot more chemistry and back and forth stuff going on between Jet Li's character and Bridget Fonda, who, as I understand, you didn't love, Mike. I think she was fine, though. I think they had an okay chemistry at the end of the day, and I mostly believed in their development, which started out one way and slowly came to a point of understanding on both sides towards the end. So I do think that she was mostly the heart of the film, but so was her daughter. Ultimately, I cannot say there's anything wrong with the movie, but at the same time, it's not like you'll remember it for the rest of your life either. It's just, you know, it's fine. You'll enjoy it mostly for the martial arts, because let's face it, if the film was stripped of martial arts, would you really care that much about it overall? Probably not. So let's go ahead and break down my final score for a second. From a technical, unbiased perspective, the biggest thing probably going on behind the scenes is fight choreography, and a teensy-weensy bit of developing Jet Li's character in terms of those needles that he carries around, which are indeed pretty unique. Everything else is rather business as usual and somewhat forgettable. This score is 66%. Now, as for what I personally felt about the film overall, or my bias score, that's a little bit higher because obviously I am a fan of martial arts and Jet Li is a master of that. It's obviously not my favorite Jet Li film, but it is fun. This score is 78%, and when we combine the two scores together, we come to the final rating of 72%. 72 out of 100 possible stars, or a letter grade of B-. Guys, it is now time to hear your thoughts on this Jet Li film. Is it your favorite, or do you prefer something else of his? Let me know, and as for YouTube, you guys know what to do. Hit that like, subscribe button, and bell to be notified when I come out with my next review, and until then, peace out!
Dave examines movies we just watch for fun. Davey is the expert, he is the #1 critic that I go to when I need a movie.